All right, welcome everybody to another episode of the Inside in Tennis podcast. Mitch Michals here, all part of the Believe Network, as we mosey along on this tennis season with the U.S. Open in the rear view. And as always, happy to have this person join the show. He was calling the U.S. Open, busy man in tennis because he comes right to the Tennis Channel studios to call the action in Guadalajara and Sao Paulo this week. Former top 5 player, USTA mainstay, Jimmy Arias. Welcome to the podcast.
Thanks, Mitch. Great to be here.
Yeah, it's the whirlwind, right? Like, it's bittersweet when the major season ends. And I know we always get to this point where from RG to US Open, it's a mad dash, but it really does kind of put things in perspective, right? 3 majors, bam, bam. And then the US Open, which you saw, which is now like a 3-week event with mixed doubles and qualifying taking a life of its own.
It's interesting is when I played probably the last 3 or 4 years, I ended my season at the U.S. Open. That's how much the fall felt like, man, I've had enough. The year's been long already. It's tough for a lot of these players. And obviously, if you're somebody that's going for the year-end championships, you're going to be making that mad dash for the rest of the year. I do remember, if I'm not mistaken, Andy Murray, I think, kind of burned himself out. Was it Andy Murray was trying to get the number 1 ranking?
He chased it down, and then, it set him back forever, basically.
He was never the same again after that mad dash for number 1 ranking. So it's hard, this sport, because it is the whole year round, and it does feel like a little bit of a letdown in the fall, even though we still have some big tournaments.
Have you noticed that, like, in the coaching and executive role, when players are prioritizing their season, that it's shifted a little bit from where you're at, where it's getting into majors. It's also setting themselves up for the last couple months of the season post-US Open for the young players?
Well, yeah. I mean, obviously, you're trying to make sure you're getting into the majors. That's how you can make a living in the sport, because you lose first round of all 4 majors and you're at like $450,000 now and you're set for the year. So you have to be top 100 or right around that number. And so for the players that are at 110, 120, 130, you guarantee they're playing every single week at Challenger. They're finding something to try to get those points to get that ranking where they need it to be. But, for the Djokovic's of the world, who just seems to play majors now, that's his last 3 tournaments for majors. That's it.
That's insane. Yeah, that I was trying to think of back, like I couldn't think of a historical point where that's all it was. No tune-ups, nothing for 3.
It seemed like a bad mistake to me. And at the U.S. Open, I don't know, Djokovic again made semi, so he's obviously still the 3rd best player in the world. There's 2 guys that are better than him, and he's the 3rd best player, it seems. So he doesn't even need to play that much leading into a major, and he can still make the semis. The problem is I don't think he's in good enough shape. It's hard to work as hard as you do in a match. Without adrenaline, without that feeling, adrenaline takes so much out of you, and you can't recreate it in practice. I don't care how much you practice. So I feel like he needs to have a couple of tune-up tournaments, get used to playing. He was almost dying in the first match against Lerner Tiie, and he was playing the night match. And it wasn't that, like, this year's US Open was not hot at all. Often you're going to have a very humid, very hot day where it feels like there's no oxygen when you're in New York. They didn't have any of those this year.
No.
That helped, obviously, Djokovic make it to the semis. But if he wants to have one more run, he needs one more major, for the record and all that jazz. He's going to have to put in a few extra tournaments before the Grand Slam starts.
The contrast with Cincinnati too, right? How just scorching and deathly that was, literally up into the end, to one of the coolest U.S. Opens on record. So we'll have more on Djokovic in a second. We wanted to also preview at the end of this episode. We'll have something fun as well, I promise. But getting to the U.S. Open, the men's final first, then we'll talk about the women. It was Carlos Alcaraz defeating Jannik Sinner in 4 sets to win his 6th major. Now he's got 2 majors on all surfaces at the age of 22. It was another, virtuoso performance in a lot of ways from Alcaraz. And it starts with this, before you get to the ins and outs of this matchup, just the stat on the whole, Jimmy, that he was only broken 3 times in the tournament, which is historical, like one of the best performances ever, from a guy who had never even come close to this number in his 5 other majors. Is just remarkable that he served so efficiently from the beginning to the end.
Yeah, and I don't know that I am going to completely credit his serve for those numbers, because I think what happens with Alcaraz is throughout his career until this US Open, he has always had moments where maybe it's too easy for him, or he just wants to come up with the fancier shot, or whatever it is. He brings the crowd to their feet with some incredible thing, but it sometimes costs him some games where he'll lose that level. He won't keep that top level the whole time. It'll give you a chance for a little while, and then he'll take it away from you because he is better than everybody else. That's the bottom line. And I think this year's US Open, that was the most I've ever seen him stay at a high level and not have many dips at all. I think it helped him that his first round opponent was Riley Opelka, who you cannot lose serve against him, or you're probably going to lose the set. So he had to start the tournament very focused on serve. And for whatever reason, he kept it throughout. And if he always keeps it throughout, man, oh man, the guy's got a lot of things going for him. So it's tough to figure out how to beat him.
You called, right, for Tennis Channel. Were you on the match against Rublev in Cincinnati? Did you call that one?
I can't remember now.
I know it all blurs together. I bring that up because that was the last time, that there was that moment where set 2, he kind of went a little haywire. It's usually about he wins the first set, he feels good, and then tries to entertain the crowd. But yeah, that's like, I hope if this is right, like if this is sustained, like this is who he is now, good luck to everybody else, because you said something else in there. When he's the best, he is the best. Like, I don't know that we even debate that anymore.
No, you would have thought. I was thinking Sinner still could, because it's hard to find. When you watch Sinner play matches against everybody but Alcaraz, you watch and go, how does anyone beat him? He's Novak Djokovic with way more power. And Djokovic is the greatest of all time as far as the numbers go. And, Sinner takes your first serve against most players. It's the one thing that was weird to me in the finals was the whole tournament. You could serve 123, 124, 125 miles an hour to Sinner, and he would take that return and hit it hard and deep at your feet, or enough to where the player, whoever was playing, when he was playing Musetti, that was the case. Musetti would hit 125 mile an hour serve and then be on his back foot off of the return. You're supposed to be in control of a point, or at least have some sort of an edge when you hit a decent serve in the corner at 125 miles an hour. And against Sinner, he was behind in those points right away. Alcaraz wasn't serving that much bigger than 124 or 125. Yeah, he got a couple in the 130s, but it wasn't consistently in the 130s. He was getting so many free points. So I'm not sure why that was, except perhaps maybe Sinner was feeling a little extra pressure against Alcaraz. He doesn't feel comfortable. Alcaraz does a few things against Sinner that no one else does. He mixes things up. People feel the pace from Sinner and they try to match it or go above it and play red line their game, and it doesn't work. If you hit hard against him, it just comes back at you faster, deeper, and you're in more trouble. You have to lift the ball a little bit and keep it out of his strike zone. And I think Alcaraz does that. He gives him so many different looks. He'll give him a spinner. He'll give him a slice. He'll whack one 100 miles an hour. And it seems to keep Sinner a little bit off balance and unsure. And so he doesn't play nearly as well against Alcaraz as he seems to play against everybody else.
Yeah, it does seem like both of these players know that they have to be different because they know they can beat everybody else on tour playing a certain way. They can outlast them. They can grind them to death. They have no, that was the other thing too. Like both of these players, Alcaraz obviously succeeded, but do you find that in rallies, they're just willing to go as long as it takes against basically everybody else? But both of the players feel like we have to take advantage. We have to end points sooner when we're up against the true rival.
Yeah, yes, it's strange to me a little bit when you watch how they're playing leading up to each other, and you feel as though this is going to be the most amazing match you've ever seen in your life. And to me, they've all been pretty disappointing. I know that Roland Garros was one for the ages, blah, blah, blah. But
so true, yeah.
But I think that only happened because of the score.
It was 2-0 and Alcaraz rallied, and yeah.
Yes, and saved match points and found a way to win, and then it got really exciting at the end. But to me, I remember when I commentated the finals of Rome, and I was really disappointed in the level of play in that match. And then I watched the first set in Roland Garros, and I remember thinking, this is going to be this feels the same as Rome. It's not they're not playing at their best, either of them
Mm-hmm.
at that stage. And luckily, I decided to flip it on 3 hours later, and it came to the exciting point. I got to see the end. So I missed set 2, 3, and most of
Yeah.
4.
That's so true though, because like we do this with other matches too, like Djokovic and Nadal, Roland Garros 21 had one of the best sets of tennis ever, but you can look at the other sets and be like, oh, maybe it's not the best level. Djokovic wins going away. And yeah, the law of averages will say when these two play, they're not classic matches. And I wanted to ask you, Jimmy, from Sinner's side, was it a case of not having it similar to Alcaraz at Wimbledon, or do you give credit to the opponent? He didn't have it because of what the other guy was doing.
Yeah, I think there's a little both. There's
Yeah.
no question that Alcaraz recognizes that because he moves so well, he can afford to take something off, lift the ball, and it coaxes some errors out of Sinner. He doesn't like to create all of the pace himself. When he does, that's when he'll miss a few. If you're hitting the ball hard at him, he's still swinging fast, don't get me wrong, and he controls it really well, but it feels as though if he has nothing to work with, that's when he might miss. I actually said it to the Ruud camp, because Ruud lost to him in Rome. I don't know, lost to Sinner 1-0 or something. It was, the score was ridiculous. And that match was Ruud would hit a first serve, not bad, 125 miles an hour, and then be so on his heels off the return. It was sad almost to watch. And I remember thinking while I was calling the match, he's trying to serve harder and harder. I think he should serve slower and slower. Just give him slow, high kicks,
Right.
hit spinny topspin, and that would be his only chance. So I actually said it to him after that match, even though I don't know him really well. I go, bad luck. Next time, instead of speeding it up, try this. I don't know if he listened. He probably said, who is this guy? And leave me alone. But
Well, yeah.
Alcaraz does do that to him.
Yeah. He certainly does. What did you think, Jimmy, about the comments after the match that Sinner made, where he said, I have to evolve, I have to be more unpredictable, and even went as far to say, even if it means I'm going to lose matches and take a step backwards to go 2 steps forward, I'm willing to sacrifice smaller goals for a bigger one in conquering Carlos Alcaraz?
I think he's right. I think he's doing the exact right thing. I think that's the one thing about Sinner that's always been the case to me is I don't think he's lying when he says, I'm just trying to keep getting better and trying to keep getting better. And he made a nice improvement, Sinner, from when he lost to Daniel Altmaier at Roland Garros a couple of years ago. And that was a match where Altmaier was just standing 100 feet behind the baseline and hitting moonballs and running. You have to be able to run for 5 hours if you're going to do that and run fast. Altmaier was able to. Sinner wasn't able to open the court yet. He was just trying to hit straight through him with huge power in the corners, but not with enough angle to hit a winner against someone that far back. So he started being able to open the court more, and that allowed him, if you remember, Sinner always used to lose to Medvedev, he used to lose to Zverev, he used to lose to the guys that stayed in the fence and were able to run down, hard hit, deep balls in the corner. So he fixed that. He's got to go to the drawing board and figure out how to beat Alcaraz, and he's going to have to find a way to deal with that variety that he's being given.
Did you ever experience that yourself, like experimenting with your game, knowing that might mean I lose matches I otherwise would have won, but it's progress I'm chasing?
I was able to do that when I was confident. So back in the day when I was doing well and moving up the rankings and feeling good about myself, I would work on things during matches, which is you have to be fairly cocky and fairly you just have to feel as though I can bring my normal game at any time in this match and it'll be good enough.
Mm-hmm.
That was kind of the feeling I would have. So if I'm playing someone and I could tell in the first couple of games that he can't combat what I know I can do every day, then I would try to do some work on things, come in a little bit more, because I wasn't someone that came in all the time, hits a few more slice, things that I didn't do as well. It's the best way to practice is because it's under pressure. But you have to be super confident. Later in my career, when I didn't think I was going to win, there's no chance I was going to practice anything. I was just trying to find a way to win.
Yeah. No, it makes total sense. Confidence is the bedrock of all this. And we know Alcaraz has it. I mentioned 6 majors, 22. I mean, his reign is just remarkable. And with Sinner and 2 guys that haven't won or have won all 8 majors, the last 8 of them, Jimmy, it seems like this reign, which has been going on for a while, has separated themselves from the field. And I wonder what the reaction is, what the motivation level is for the locker room, because we have 2 guys sweeping up all the majors. Who, if anyone, can break through is going to be the question until someone does it.
The scary part to me was at this U.S. Open, it felt like they even distanced themselves more. They've already, as you mentioned, it was the last 7. Now it's the last 8, but it felt like a lot of the men's U.S. Open this year was sort of boring because the matches were dominated from start to finish by those 2 guys. They were never in doubt. It didn't seem like at any point in the match. Maybe Shapovalov against Sinner.
Yeah. I thought Felix actually played well. I mean, I don't know that I ever thought he was going to win, but the second set he served, it was the best serving performance of his life.
But you also knew that he couldn't keep that serving level up. I mean, no one serving 80% or something. So I never thought they'd win. At least there were 2 guys that got a set off Sinner. Nobody got a set off Alcaraz. But the point is, it looked like 2 different level players against everybody else. Yeah. And who's going to be next? I mean, look, the guy that keeps improving and still has a ton of room to improve is Shelton. So Shelton still has, he's still not going to hang that well in baseline points with those guys, but he has the serve and he knows that he can rip from anywhere and he can get hot for a couple of points and maybe get a break of serve, and then he's hard to break. He's athletic, he comes in well, he's got that swagger, he thinks he's really good, and that's an important part. He's not going to be intimidated. If he has a chance to win, he'll win. That's the feeling you get from Ben Shelton. So to me, he's a guy that could challenge them at some point. He's got to still improve his footwork, and it's nowhere near the same level of when he gets pulled out wide to the backhand. You just don't sense that he's going to be able to hang in the points with them right now. But he's got so many weapons that he's dangerous.
Yeah. It was tough to see for the injury break for him. And then Jack Draper is another one that I think has some room to grow. And
you're right. He hasn't, but he's always injured. Draper's scared a little bit because he's a little. He feels a little like one of those players. There are certain players that, if there's pain, I don't play, and it's hard to go a whole year without having pain. At some point, you got to be able to differentiate between this is a pain that is going to cause me to not be able to play at some point, and this is just I have inflammation, I have tendonitis, whatever, and I can sort of play through this for a while. So they feel like players that don't want to play through. I could be wrong. Maybe they've been really injured, but that's the feeling you get when it happens that often.
We'll see. We wish Draper the best. Again, a lot of potential there, as with Shelton. Carlos Alcaraz remains supreme. He wins the 2025 U.S. Open. As we move along here on the Inside in Tennis podcast with Jimmy Arias.
One more thing, just for my amusement, because Martin Damm Jr. Was at the U.S. Open this year, and Alcaraz asked him to hit with him. And so he had a practice, and Alcaraz told him, and Martin was very excited about this, told him that Martin Damm, was in the juniors, was Alcaraz's Roger Federer. He was that scared of Martin, and he thought he was amazing.
Okay.
Martin Damm loved it, and actually then played great at the U.S. Open. Qualified and won a round and gave Francis Tiafoe all he could handle. So maybe he needed that confidence boost from the #1 guy in the world telling him, "You're my Federer." Wow.
Just such a benevolent champion Carlos Alcaraz is. It's great. No, I was impressed with Dom too. So that's really cool to hear that kind of insight here on the Inside in Tennis podcast. All right, Jimmy, looking at the Jimmy Arias here on the show, looking at the women's side, it was Sabalenka defending her title, going through some really tough competition in Pegula and then Anisimova, a pair of Americans, to get back to the winner's circle. Wins another major, her 4th overall, and really doing it, I think, starting with her, Sabalenka, doing it through serving. 2 years ago, she couldn't make a first serve. It was one of the worst cases of the yips, and now she relies on it to win a title. That was the most jaw-dropping thing to me, that she literally turned a weakness into a strength.
Well, anytime that you get the yips, I feel like it could be career over. And I know from my own experience, I got the yips at the end of my career a little bit. I didn't go her route of smashing. I just made sure I got the first serve in, so I never had
Slowest serve on record, right? That's still your
exactly.
record.
That will never be broken. 37 miles an hour for you that don't.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I'm always impressed with anyone that can get over it, because it's sort of an inadvertent move. Your body, you can't control. When you get the yips, it's whatever it is that you can't control. For me, it was my hip. My hip would open too soon, and I knew it was doing it, and I couldn't stop it. And I'm not sure what her yip was, but yes, she couldn't. She would hit a second serve 25 feet long. She did it at the bottom of the net. You didn't know what she was going to come with each time, and now it is a strength. So for her, my hat's off to her from that standpoint. I do feel a little bit for Jess Pegula, because Pegula had a tough stretch where she wasn't playing well. And then at the U.S. Open, she had a nice draw, so that helped her get into the tournament. But by the end, she was playing really well, and she had so many chances to break back in that third set, and it just, nothing was quite going right for her. But I think that was her chance, because against Anisimova in the final, I think that may have been the one time Pegula could have gotten a slam.
I agree, and I think, like, you mentioned, not anything close to a dream summer from her. Draw opens up, doesn't play a seeded player till Sabalenka, but Krejcikova obviously might have had an empty tank, but that's a 2-time slam winner in the quarters that she handled. I thought she played great serving wise, like she even made light of it, like she got broke. Those were the only 4 points she lost on her serve in that third set. It was serving lights out. She looked very good. She looked great, even some of the best she's looked. But yeah, it's one thing to remember a match from a great performance, and another to look at it and say, I had chances, but I couldn't convert. And she played her a lot better than she did in the final, I think, a year ago. So it's a tough one for Jess, but she should come away thinking, look, I was right there with the best player in the world and was so close to getting over the hump.
I mean, that is what she should be thinking, but she's also nearing an age where, how long in.
She called her shot too. She said 2028. I know players can go back on whenever they do, but she said LA Olympics is going to be the final stop for me, one way or the other.
Okay.
So
interesting, because that's nice to hear, because she's got to, even though, why wouldn't she play the U.S. Open that year?
Yeah.
Quite by the Olympics will be the last. Give her another couple of weeks. You should end at the U.S. Open, in my opinion. And for Amanda Anisimova, look, you got to give a shout out to her, because she was so promising in 2019 as a 17-year-old. She made semis of Roland Garros. I watched her play there, and I was thinking, this is going to be someone who wins majors for sure. And then, some tragedy with her father passing away, and struggling with emotions and motivation really to play the game. And then to be able to come back, and almost she's fulfilling the promise that you saw all those years ago, with back-to-back runner-up finishes in majors. Now she's got to figure out how to get control of the nerves in those finals. She did so much better, obviously, at the U.S. Open than she did at Wimbledon. And then I love how she got back against Swiatek at the U.S. Open, lost serve in the first game, but then you're thinking right away, like, oh no, 0-0 again.
Yeah.
And she managed to win that match. And then same thing in the final, got down right away, early break. And you're thinking the same thing. Oh no, I'm thinking, hopefully she wasn't thinking, I guess she wasn't. But when she finally got the game, then it was off and running, and she had her chance as well.
Yeah, winning, beating Iga, obviously avenging that loss. I mean, making 2 major finals, and as you said, feeling her potential. She was outside the top 40 when the year started. Now she's number 4 in the world. So just remarkable growth, and a hell of a season for her. But you start to think about how players handle success and failure, like coming back, but also beating Iga and then beating Naomi right after that, not having the letdown spot that's plagued players before. It's been said too, and I wanted to ask you as a technique guy too, where would you put her backhand? Because it is very, very good and very beautiful to watch.
I remember when she was 17 telling Max Eisenbud, who's a IMG agent, super agent kind of, you've picked a good one. Her backhand is is next level. And I still think it's pretty much perfect. Her backhand, she can put it on a dime with pace in either direction, and it's perfect, pretty much.
Yeah, I'm with you there. I mean, there was just so many winners hit. And I know she goes big, and beating Naomi, who had a great run in Osaka, getting back in the mix is good to see. There's the critique and there's pushback out there that Anisimova maybe goes a little too big at times. But I would counter that, and I want to hear your take too. When you play Sabalenka, I feel like that's the pressure that Aryna puts you under.
No question.
Yeah.
And also, I don't think defense and movement is necessarily Anisimova's strength.
Yeah.
So don't get yourself on defense. You have to be able to play strike first kind of tennis. And that's what Sabalenka does as well. So this is always going to be a matchup of who can strike first, and who's getting control of the point is going to win the point more often.
Yeah.
If anything, I think Sabalenka might defend a bit better than Anisimova, so it makes it even more difficult for Anisimova. She has to make sure she's in control.
It's been a heck of a rivalry with those two. Hope to see more of them. And then Sabalenka doing it by winning a tiebreaker is just perfect. I mean, is that something? We looked at the record. I think it's 21 straight since losing her first one of the year. Is that something that you would know on the other side of the net? Like you get into a situation, this player's just been lights out, or do you not even think about that sort of thing?
Well, yourself. So Sabalenka knows. I'm not sure the opponent always knows, because I didn't know my opponent's tiebreak record when I played them, but I certainly knew. I remember I won the first 10 tiebreaks in the final set that I played on tour.
So you just know that when you get to that situation, I'm comfortable.
I felt like I'm going to win. I remember one of the funnier moments for me was I was playing a Spanish guy named Juan Avendano, and I held serve to go up 6-5 in the third set. Yeah. And I literally, I'm not exaggerating. I looked over at him on the changeover, and I said to myself, look, he still thinks he has a chance. But this match is over, because it's worst case scenario is tiebreak final set, and I don't lose tiebreak final sets. And I ended up breaking that time because I was so confident that the match was over. The flip side that I did lose the next 10 or 15 of them also, because once I started losing them, it was I was also mental in the wrong direction.
Well, there's something to be said for Sabalenka not just winning these tiebreakers, but giving herself as many chances. Like, she's number one in the world, she's reserved it, but just looking at majors, Jimmy, like she's always in the quarters and semis. And I just think it's like having so many, dart throws at the dartboard. Like, she's always in the mix that, whatever happens, there were some tough losses. There was pressure maybe on her to get one major, given that she hadn't had one yet. But putting yourself in the mix enough just gives you so many chances and opportunities to win another one.
Sabalenka is very surprising to me, because I felt like from a mental side, I think that wasn't a strength at one time in her career. And now it is. Now she wins the big moments. She's winning the tighter matches. She's figured it out. She doesn't, you had the yips at one time, and you can still stand there on a second serve at a huge point and not throw in the double fault.
Yeah.
That's hard. No, very few people have been able to do that. So to make that reversal. So I got to hand it to her. She's always had, huge weapons. She hits the ball massively. He's now hired Max Mirny. I don't know how long he's going to be in, but Max is trying to get her to get to the net and learn how to finish off at the net a little bit more and feel more comfortable coming in. So she's still trying to add to her game.
Yeah, it's great. The women's game's in a good spot with some proven champions, Iga winning Wimbledon, Sabalenka backing it up. And then just the final note too, I wanted to get your opinion, Jimmy, because it's been a minute since we talked on Coco Gauff, the serve issues and her approach to try to fixing it. I equated it to, and I think she competed admirably, but she was basically cramming for a final the week before in front of 20,000 people. I've never taken a final in front of 20,000 people. So thoughts on where she is with her serve and where she's going to go from here?
Well, I definitely wouldn't be going over biomechanics days before the U.S. Open. She was there practicing, you have no idea, hours and hours and hours every day trying to get ready. And I was thinking at the time watching it, forehand as well. She's trying to break down her forehand technically as well. And to have technical thoughts while you're trying to win a major seemed impossible. And in the end, I think it proved to be impossible for her. Emotionally, she's in a difficult state because I'm sure walking out on the court, she's got this thought of, I might not put a serve in. I might not put a forehand in. And the panic that causes is too much for most people. And it seemed like it was almost too much for her. Hopefully she can get herself the way Sabalenka was able to fix the serve and the other player that did that was Djokovic. Djokovic had a year or so when he couldn't get a serve, and in Zverev, there's been a few players. Zverev couldn't hit a second serve. He decided not to hit any. He was just hitting two first serves for a while, and luckily for him, he gets 70-something% of his first serves, and so sort of the math works going to serves for him. So hopefully Gauff can become that strong mentally and find the tip that fixes the rhythm on her serve, because that's the key. You got to figure out, serve is all about the kinetic chain and getting the rhythm right. And when you start getting tight, something for her, she tends to pull down, and bad things can happen from there. So if she gets that right, she's such a good athlete. She's next level athlete compared to everyone else on the tour. She's winning matches. She won a major this year, and she's got two giant holes in her game right now. And I don't think it helps that everyone talks about it, by the way. Like, she's aware that everyone says your serve and your forehand. And so she's playing a match, and I'm sure every ball's coming to her forehand, and she's got to be in her head thinking, that kind of stuff. So hopefully for her, she's got enough time, end of the year, and she starts the new year with a fresh, more relaxed feel to those two shots.
We wish her the best. It's great when she's at the top of the game and competing for major titles. So we'll see what happens with Coco. But by and large, it was a successful U.S. Open across the board, and the viewership saw that too. Even though in this country, I know you're familiar with it too, the start time is always going up against Sunday football, but they were able to, although you had your Bills win at night, so you had that going on.
It is true. The Sunday thing is bad. We got to do something with that NFL. Get it off to another start.
Yeah, and it's earlier, right? Like if I'm remembering correctly, they moved this up recently. Like it used to be a little later, like starting in the afternoon slate, I want to say, I think.
Yeah.
So we'll see what happens there. Jimmy Arias here on the Inside In Tennis podcast. Some other news and notes before we wrap this one up. I did want your thoughts on another coaching change that we're seeing. Have you seen Daniil Medvedev on the practice courts with some new guys, one of which I think you know a little bit as well?
Well, I think I saw with Thomas Johansson. Is that right?
Yeah. He was also on there with Rohan Gatsky, the director of IMG Academy. They were on the practice court together. So I just wanted your reaction there. I know you're an IMG guy too. So those two are out hitting, and it sounds like pretty much official that those are part of the new Team Medvedev.
But is Johansson also, because he was with Corey, so is he left K?
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty much, well, they were out there hitting, and it was like an official, unofficial team building, let's start the ground. But yeah, those two together.
I think anytime a player has started to struggle, they look for a change. Medvedev has obviously struggled this year, far below what he expects of himself. And even more so, I guess, in the majors. That's where he flopped, as much as he's ever flopped. So he's looking for some new blood, some new thoughts. And there's a part of me, I hate to say it because I'm kind of a coach, it's really the players are deciding how they do. The coach can help on the margins, and what they're going to have to do is get him somehow to buy into whatever they're telling him, whatever it is he needs to do, and he buys into it, and it helps him with the confidence in the feel, and that he thinks he's on the right track and more relaxed. That's the main thing, that at this level, when you're as good as these players are, it comes down to a couple of points, really, and that comes down to who's confident in the big moments. Medvedev normally was winning those big moments. He was one of the best because he could think his way through matches. He was one of the few guys you could see would make some tactical changes. So I've always liked Medvedev. I like the way I can't believe he wins with the strokes that he has and from the positions in the court he starts points with, but but the guy was the maestro at figuring it out, and hopefully with those two guys, he'll get back to it.
It was a rough summer, and it wasn't just the U.S. Open, but it was handling losses had not been going well. You can see mentally he just wasn't, feeling in a good place. So hopefully the reset button works for him. And you're right about a few points, Jimmy. I don't know if you saw the stats that came out. Alcaraz Sinner, it's like a 10-5 head-to-head for Alcaraz, but 6 total points. That's what he leads by.
That's why it's whoever's winning those important points. That's who wins. And that comes down to confidence, really. It's amazing how the top players that are winning all the time, when they're facing a break point, they seem to come up with the right shots that make the first serve. Pete Sampras would ace you every freaking time, it seemed like, on break point. So it's just one of those things that the champions have, that innate confidence.
Mm-hmm. We'll see if Medvedev recaptures it. The last thing on the agenda for this show, we do have the Davis Cup coming up, and it's going to be another round there. And the American men, unfortunately, Jimmy, I know it's a different format from when you played, but shorthanded with Paul resting up after coming back, admirably at the U.S. Open, playing some physical matches, and then Shelton's injury. So the American men added some replacements in Opelka and Mickelson, but trying to recapture some magic in the Davis Cup.
Tough matchup against Czechia. They're a dangerous team with 3 excellent players, and it's not going to be easy for the U.S. certainly in that. You have Mahac for the Czechs that can be great and can play badly, so it's hard to know what you're going to get from him.
When he's on, it's like incredible, right?
He's
it's
one of the coolest guys to watch. So the way he gets to the net and is so fast and so balanced, but then there's matches where he seems to go away. Menchik, in Miami, he wins 1,000 in Miami, wins every tiebreak that he played, has a huge serve, so he can be dangerous. I think Lehechka is very good. He's to me, I don't know, hits the ball really hard. His legs are the size of my waist. Got great balance and speed. So again, it's going to be the U.S. is going to need some help. The crowd's going to have to get into the matches and help our guys, because it's not going to be easy.
Yeah, playing that down in Florida, so hopefully there's some support there. Different format, too, and I know it's changed so much from when you played, but that's kind of where I wanted to end this, because one of the best parts of this show that I've heard feedback from are some of the stories. You've lived a life in tennis like no other, so I was trying to look up some old matches and see different things. And, Davis Cup is coming up, and I came across one in 1987 against Paraguay that I just have to ask you the story of.
Well, if I give you that story, it's going to end up being maybe too long for the podcast.
We could go. Oh, okay.
I'll try to abbreviate as well as I can. The year before, I played in Ecuador. And my personality is, if the crowd is really against you, which it is, and obviously playing in Ecuador and playing in Paraguay, the crowd is really against me. I enjoy annoying them back.
Yes.
Like, I want to fight back, and I enjoy it if I can get them angry. So in Ecuador, for instance, just every time I made an unforced error against Andres Gomez, who was the hero of Ecuador, obviously, and had never lost. Never lost in Guayaquil, which is where we were playing in Davis Cup. And every time I made an unforced error, the entire crowd in unison would go, "Aw," which, you have no idea how annoying that. You're already annoyed that you made an unforced error. And they didn't do it if it was a forced error. If it was an unforced error, aw. So 4-all in the 5th set, deuce on my serve, I hit an ace, and I went, aw. And the crowd goes bananas, and they're shaking the fence, and then I did something else. I made another gesture that no one in the USTA actually saw exactly what I did, but I did something that I probably shouldn't have done when they started to quiet down. I was smiling at them, and then they quieted down, and then I did something that was bad. And they went bananas. It ended up being a 15-minute ordeal. And so before the Paraguay match, I got sat down, and they said, if you want to play for the U.S. in this match, you are not allowed to do anything. They were trying to ask me, what did you do? And I said, I didn't do anything. I just...
But you had to bottle it up, essentially, is what they're telling you.
They told me you have to just take whatever is shoved on you and don't react and don't add any fire to this. So it's not my personality. So that's my first excuse for what happened in Paraguay. But obviously I'm playing a guy that I've never heard from before, since. And,
Yeah.
in fact, he lost 0-0 in Rome qualifying a couple weeks later, and then that guy qualified, and I beat the guy 2-2 in the first round of Rome. So I was thinking, what the heck happened in Paraguay? But anyway, Hugo Chapacu was his name, and Chapacu did play well there. He went 5 sets with Krickstein the first day, and the bottom line is I was up 5-1 in the 5th set. I was down match points in set 3. I was down 2 sets to love, match points, came back, won the 3rd, won the 4th. He started tiring. I was up 5-1 in the 5th. He got some treatment. He got something orally taken at 3-love in the 5th, and it did start to get stronger, and it was a 4-hour, 45-minute, time match. And I did, like, a couple of things were happening in that match. One, when you got run wide close to the sidelines, you would get spit on, or little stones would get thrown.
They're throwing stuff at you in the reports of this match.
They're throwing things in the points, just little stones. So you'd run, hit it, and do that. So that was obviously a little off-putting. And then the one that I'll never forget, and they got suspended for 2 years, it was deuce. It wasn't match point, but it was 5-2 in the 5th, I think, and deuce, and a forehand inside out winner. Linesman, of course, called it out. The umpire overruled. The captain of Paraguay climbed up in the chair, face to face with the umpire. They had a discussion for 5 minutes, and the umpire changed his overrule.
Unreal,
I heard after. I don't know if this is true because I didn't hear the conversation, but what I heard was he was told, if you stick with this overrule, you will not get out of here alive. And the umpire's like, oh, okay, it's out.
Was that report true about the Ronald Reagan mask?
Yes, that is. So that was just, I don't remember what the score was, but I was going back to get my towel in the back of the court, and all of a sudden a guy jumped up and he had a Ronald Reagan mask on, and it kind of freaked me out. I also got hit by a brick as I left the court. As I left the stadium, it didn't hit me straight, but it grazed my head, and I ended up just running. Which that one always confused me because I'm thinking, I lost. So you should be loving.
That's just crazy how different.
5-1 up in the 5th, for crying out loud. It's impossible.
And then you had another the team had a net match. Like Krickstein played after that, after all the chaos.
0% chance Krickstein was going to be able to win. I knew that after the way the crowd was in an absolute fury and
different time though. Different time. The Davis Cup then. It's a wild these home ties.
Those days were in Italy. They were rougher than they are now. And in South America Davis Cup, you have to be
protect
I'm actually
yourself.
Happy the USTA sat me down because I do think something bad might have happened to me had I acted in Paraguay the way I did in Ecuador. In Ecuador, they got mad at me and they booed me and they, did the whole thing. But I think I felt a little more dangerous.
Wow. Crazy times back then, but you survived it. You lived with stories to tell, and we move along here. But Jimmy Arias, this was a blast. It's always good to hear from you, hear you break down the U.S. Open finals at the expert level that you have. And we look forward to hearing you on the air as well. Can't wait to do this show again, but always a pleasure having you on the podcast.
All right. Thanks, Mitch. Be good.
That was Jimmy Arias. This was the Inside in Tennis podcast, available on all your podcast platforms. Just go to Apple, Spotify, iHeartMusic, Amazon, wherever you get your shows. Download it, click subscribe, leave a nice rating and a review, and follow the YouTube channel as well. You can subscribe to that at Mitch Michals for the video episodes of this show. The show continues on with great expert interviews with analysts, former players, coaches, and people that are involved in the game. So I can't wait for that for the conclusion of the 2025 tennis season. But for Jimmy Arias, I'm Mitch Michals. This was the Inside in Tennis podcast. Thank you for listening, and I'll talk to you soon.